Sometimes love isn't enough. As an adoptive mom, people would often say this to me, as if to imply I couldn't love my son enough to change behaviors or heal his trauma, so I should probably just give up. At least that's how I took those four powerful words, which had buried themselves deeply in my mind, leading me to doubt my ability to parent my child. Sometimes love isn't enough. That is the truth. Oftentimes, you need love and powerful, personalized tools to raise a child who's experienced trauma and disrupted attachment, or a child who you're struggling to connect with. I am on a mission to help parents raising kids with a tricky past to show up with unconditional love and practical tools to lovingly manage even the most challenging of times. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Plus, if you like what you hear, I'd love for you to leave a review. Now let's get to the good stuff. Hey, so welcome back to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. I'm Angie. I am your host. And for this episode, I want to talk about a feeling that was all too common for me and a recurring theme. I don't necessarily always hear these exact words, but a recurring theme that I see with a lot of the clients that I serve and parents that I connect with. And, as parents, uh, I I take so much pride in my ability to be a good parent. I know I've probably said this before if you've listened to other episodes, but with my daughter, it was so easy. And not that she necessarily had all of the easiest behaviors, but I found it easy to just meet her where she was at. And and then my son came along and he had a lot of struggles. And honestly, when he was struggling, I was struggling. I, I compared how I parented my daughter and saw that I was missing the mark with him time and time and time again. I'd see how, my friends could have, you know, two, three, four, even more kids in their family and not really seem to be struggling with any of them to the same level that I was. I I would see parents who weren't struggling, who weren't overwhelmed, they weren't frustrated. And I was raising my kids when Facebook became, a social media in general became a big thing. And I don't share a ton on social media about my family. I'm pretty private in general, which is odd, right? Here I am with a podcast. But but nonetheless, I would see how others would share their life. And I felt like everything that I was desperately trying to do with my son just wasn't working. I felt broken. I I felt like such a failure as a mom, which was really a really hard feeling to have when not only did I feel so successful with my daughter and parenting her, but to become a foster parent, an adoptive parent is a huge leap. And essentially, it's us as parents saying, I am so confident in my skill set that I can raise any child from any background who's experienced anything. That's something that we say essentially when we fill out all that paperwork and we go through the home study and we speak with the caseworkers, is that I can handle anything. So then, we have these kids that we can't handle all of it. And we feel like I don't know, like I said, I just felt so broken. I felt I felt like what I was doing, how hard I was trying wasn't working. And it led to me being so desperate to try anything and everything. And those who know me personally know that I'm such a rule follower. So with everything that I sought out to try to fix things in my home, I followed things to the T, right? If I was given a recommendation, I followed it to the very best of my understanding of this new skill. I followed it relentlessly, sometimes to the detriment of my relationship with my son even more. But I would stick with a plan for as long as until the next check-in with the therapist or the professional that had recommended it, or as long as the book or the workshop I had attended said to try it for, right? I was trying all of these things. And I think without knowing it back then, when I look back now, what kept running through my head was that if things are so hard, if we're struggling so much, then there's really only two possible reasons, right? Either there's something very wrong with my son and he's a bad kid, or I'm a bad parent. And I really struggled with both, right? Because I would see so much good in my son, and other people would see only good in him and nothing bad. Not everybody, of course, but there were definitely people in his life who only saw the good and saw how sweet and kind he could be. And so, and then I looked at myself as a parent, and I I also could see how good of a parent that I could be. Yet I kept failing time and time again. It didn't make sense to me why I I couldn't be a bad parent, right? Because I was trying so hard. And he couldn't be a bad kid because I know he had so much good in him. But to me, those were the only two possibilities, right? What I've learned in the past, honestly, in the past year, I've learned this so substantially more than in the 40 plus years prior to that. What I've really learned is that our conditioning, meaning not only how we were raised, not only what we saw on TV, social media, what we see with our friends and family around us, not only those pieces of our life have led to our conditioning, our way that we expect our kids to be is very much conditioned by our surroundings, right? Like we expect kids to behave a certain way because of the way that we were raised and the expectations from our parents. And they learned it from their parents and they learned it from their parents, right? We also learn these expectations from, like I said, TV, social media, from those around us, from watching our friends and family and coworkers and how they raise their kids. So that I knew, right? I knew that there's that whole nature versus nurture. And I feel like I tried so hard to take control of that whole nurture piece, right? I had some amazing things in my upbringing that I wanted to make sure that I brought into my path as a parent. And I had some things in my upbringing that I wanted to make sure that never happened to my kids. But it wasn't just that, right? Like I dove into every kind of training and workshop that I could possibly imagine to be the best possible parent for my son. So it wasn't all just nature versus nurture. It wasn't a lack of skills or tools in my tool belt. It wasn't a lack of trying. And I didn't understand where exactly that had gone wrong. I really thought when I first started working with my coach a couple of years ago that perhaps I didn't have quite the right tools in my tool belt. When I started working with my coach, who is just so incredible, I learned about mindset tools. I learned about coaching, working with a coach, and how we really have so much more control over our thoughts and our feelings than I ever knew. I mean, I definitely knew that I had some authority over what I was thinking and feeling, but when push came to shove, literally or figuratively, when behaviors got hard in my house, I definitely felt victim. Like I gave up all authority over my thoughts and feelings to the behaviors in my home. I definitely felt like there was no other way to look at what was happening in my home other than the way that I was seeing it. I now know that that's different, and I help families that I serve to not only see it differently, but then start taking different action, right? That's the point. When we stop feeling so overwhelmed and frustrated and resentful about what's happening in our home, we can take different action. I didn't know that then. I do now. And oh man, it's so cool seeing the parents that I serve take that and shift the way they're showing up for their kids. But I've learned recently that even that isn't quite enough. It is quite hitting the mark. And I didn't realize why or what I was missing until honestly about a month ago. So I mentioned recently that I have not only been learning about human design and really starting to understand myself better over the past year. So, yeah, it was about a year ago. It was in the spring of 23 that I started learning about human design for myself, um, to understand myself better, understand how to use how I'm perfectly designed in my business, right? But about a month ago, I decided to myself get certified in human design. And there's something so powerful that I don't know, I've been hearing it all along, but it suddenly clicked for me as I started working through this certification, is that we all are perfectly designed to fulfill our purpose in life. No matter what religion you follow, I think that that is such a common theme in any type of religion or spiritual following that you might follow. The reason that I am just so drawn to human design is because I've known this about myself for as long as I can remember, but like I don't like to mess around, man. Like, give me the answer to something and I'll take it and run with it. But I don't want to have to do a bunch of research and compare and contrast. That's just not who I am. Turns out that's in my design too. Part of my design is that I, I just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it and run with it. Funny, right? I've been this way my whole life, and my human design reflects that. But back to what we were talking about is that in human design, we have these things called centers. So if you're new to human design, it's this funny looking image that has a bunch of shapes and lines and numbers on it. And those shapes on there are called centers. So each of us has a different configuration of shapes colored in, shapes not colored in, lines colored in, lines not colored in, and numbers, either circled or not. We're all different, we're all unique. Um, but each of those things represents a part of us and represents how we have energy, how we access our own energy, how we absorb other people's energy. It's very specific about energy and how we use it. So I've been learning that for quite some time and trying to wrap my head around it, which is at first was rather confusing, but now that I understand it a little bit better, oh man, my mind is just blown every time I look up something else about myself, how much it matches my reality that I've been experiencing my whole life. But again, back to what I was saying is that so we all have these shapes in us. And when your shape or your center is not colored in, it's called undefined. If there are no numbers in it circled also, then it's called completely open. But either way, when we have a center that's undefined or open, it means that it is susceptible to conditioning from people around you to things that you experience in your life. It's much more susceptible to conditioning, where your centers that are defined, that's more a reflection of who you are and how you were designed. And it's not really so susceptible to conditioning. When I really wrapped my head around that and what in the world that means as we are parents and we're trying to match those around us, trying to be a parent like that parent, or even to parent this child the way that we parent that child. Well, one of the many things that conditions us is our kids, right? Our kids are energetic beings just like we are, which means when I'm interacting with my daughter and her energy type and her defined centers and her defined channels, her activated keys or gates, when I'm with her, she's conditioning me in one way. When I'm with my son, he's conditioning me in a very different way. When I realized that, holy cow, so my son has all of his own conditioning that he's dealing with. But then when I interact with him, not only is he conditioning me. So, for example, say, for example, that my emotional solar plexus is undefined or open. And say, for example, that my son's is defined, meaning he has his own fixed energy that belongs to him when it comes to emotional intelligence, emotional processing. And say, for example, that I don't. That means that when I'm with him, I'm feeling and absorbing his emotional energy, not my own. It when when I realized, and now I'm really digging into both of my kids' designs and really understanding them and their energy and how they use energy to get things done, where their energy might get stuck, and where my own energy interacts with theirs, my my view of my kids has just grown exponentially to understand them better. Because if I'm being honest, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, it was easy for me to say that I connected better with my daughter because we have a biological connection. And on that same logic, it's harder for me to connect with my son because we don't have that biological connection. But what if, in addition to that, there are parts about our energy, right? I can't change our biology. It it is what it is, and it's something that is up to me and my son to work through. But I can have an impact on my energy and how I use it and how I work on being the best version of me when I'm with him. So that no matter what type of energy I'm absorbing from him, I can continue working on my energy and how I'm showing up for him, not just in my words, but I know I shared early on in an early episode, but I I knew I didn't quite have the words to say it or to describe it, but I knew when my son was younger, I knew that my energy had such an impact on him. I knew that I could try to fake it and tell him that I wasn't mad or I wasn't upset with him, but he always knew better than my words, and maybe even better than I did sometimes, because when he's experiencing my energy, my emotional energy, when he's experiencing that, because it's not his, it's not something that he experiences every day, it feels different to him, right? My emotional energy is actually harder for me to perceive because it's just there all the time and I know what it is, and it's just part of who I am. But when other people are around me who might have an open, I do actually, the way that I described it earlier, I actually have a defined solar plexus. So I have fixed emotions, I have fixed ways of processing, I have very fixed emotional waves that I go through. But when other people are around me, they absorb my emotions. So if I am in a funk, the people around me feel it, especially those who have an open emotional center. And so I wanted to leave you at the end of this episode with a couple of things. One, I am going to be very soon offering a human design reading. So if you are new to human design, I'm now certified level 1 and level 2 as a specialist in quantum human design with Karen Curry Parker, which gives me very specific things that I can help you see in you, which can be so incredibly powerful. And I can help you see how your energy interacts with your kids, because that's where the money is, man. That is where, when you understand not only you, you have to go first. You have to first understand you, but I can help walk you through key things about yourself to study so that you understand your energy better. So that when you are interacting with your kiddos, interacting with your spouse, interacting with your boss, whoever it is, even the barista at the coffee shop, when you understand your energy type and how you absorb other people's energy, what type of fixed energy you have, when you understand that better, oh man, it's such a game changer. And then when you can layer on top of that, understanding your kids' energy, whoa, it's just wild. And man, I have not perfected it yet by any means, but I'm curious and I'm learning and I'm studying and then applying that to what I see with both of my kids. And it's been really powerful. So that's one thing that I'm offering to you is I will be scheduling readings. So if you're interested at all, email me. My contact info, my website and everything is in the show notes. So check that out. And then the other thing, and so then the other thing I guess I want to leave you with is if you are new to human design, if or even if you've been studying human design for years, um, the one thing that I would say as far as like a takeaway to start making change is to actually just take a step back and remember why you're a parent. Remember why, if you adopted, remember why you adopted in the first place. Because we can do all this studying and digging about your design, but I think first just recentering yourself as a parent and getting yourself out of the chaos of the behaviors and really just taking a step back and asking yourself, why are you a parent? What is it about your kids that just lights you up, that keeps you moving forward and wanting to be better than you are today? Because, man, none of us are perfect, but we can keep trying and keep learning and keep shifting who we're being. We can't change our kids, but we sure can be a role model for them and show them a different way. So that's what I'll leave you with today is those two things. Book a reading. I'm still working out the details. I'm excited to do the readings. That part's easy peasy, but man, oh man, like getting the website set up and all that fun stuff, that is not my jam. But that's okay. We'll have it figured out by the time this airs. So all is well. And yeah, take a step back and really just reflect on parenting and being a parent. So that's it. I hope you found this so powerful. We will talk soon. I hope that you found this episode so incredibly powerful. Thank you for joining us for Sometimes Love Isn't Enough. If you resonated with what you heard here, please subscribe to this podcast and give us a review. You can also follow us on all the socials. Check the show notes for all the details about how to start tackling behaviors and creating a powerful, loving relationship with your child, a child who needs your love the most. And if your gut's telling you that it's time for a change now, book a free consult. I'd love to help you love unconditionally and show you that you have that power within you.